Well, good day, everybody. I've joined the short straw today to host. So just thought I'd say hi. Everyone's gathered together to do a nice little chat. We thought getting some balance in our lives was a very important thing, and I think it has to be really considered, especially at the moment with the Ascension. And we've all had to find, particularly in this group, a lot of balance between our home lives and our personal lives and work lives to sort of really embrace the change that's coming. And I think everyone's got a little bit of an individual story as to how they do things, and we're hoping we can sort of put forth some good information for everyone to sort of get some ideas on how they might be able to find a bit more balance or enhance what they're doing now. So I mean, I've found certainly since coming into this sort of more public space, it's been a challenge just balancing office and work life and kids and marriage and you name it. It's been a real challenge, but it's been such a priority and such a passion for me to do this that helps. I think it helps you to sort of make those decisions and make decisions to help find that balance. And I think for me it was certainly a big sort of change in my life, and I had to sort of make some adjustments pretty quick. And it wasn't something I was planning on doing. I hadn't certainly planned on becoming more of a public spokesman or anything in this space, but I'd been researching and really delving into this thing for quite a bit, and it just sort of came about as things do in life. These things just come across your doorstep, and that's more or less how it all sort of unfolded for me. But I think Rexy might be joining us. We'll see how we go. Other than that, the group's here to really have a good chat. So what we'll do is we'll sort of go around the table and we'll sort of put everyone's sort of thoughts on there, and hopefully we've got some really good information to share with everyone. And of course, if you've got any questions or anything, you can put them on the channel, and I'm sure we'll be able to answer them as well. But who want to go first? I mean, I'll chime in eventually. But is anyone who wants to sort of start off with their sort of routines or their sort of balancing life and Ascension at this point?
I would just have to say that you're right as far as the balancing part being the big. I mean, let's talk about just our group in general right here. Just to get the times so that we can do the chats. We've got so many different time zones. It's a brain teaser to do that. Okay. And generally a couple of years ago, I would have never thought, just like you, Scott, that I would be, even have a YouTube channel now or do any of this stuff. Like, are you kidding me? So it's definitely, it's probably a good thing we don't know in advance, because we might, kind of chicken out. But if you do it just authentically and gradually and step out, nothing ventured, nothing gained, I've always said. Okay. Now, for me, I still hold down a regular 3D job, albeit I made it part-time, which was nice. But so I have that. So I have to step into that world a couple times a week. And I definitely deal with very interesting folks, very sick people, and people that probably have a lot of issues going on stuff. So talk about clearing and protecting yourself. We do a lot of that when I'm at the job. My family is not awake to the same things I'm really following. In the very beginning, I was trying to gently kind of have some information come out. My daughter is a little bit more aware, but she still says you're kind of like scaring me here. So like chill. So I just kind of just shut up for a while. And my husband needs to see things before he's really going to believe a lot of the things. And so we just keep with the 3D thing and trying to do that whole balance thing. After immersing myself with this and all that we've done over the last couple of years, it was time for me to take a step back too and realize I had not been a good participant in my own life here in the present time. So it's very important to just maneuver each day in your inner knowing that you what you're learning, and feeling good about what's coming in and what your intuition is telling you. And in kindness, when you get a chance and you're out in the public talking to people, you can kind of say little things and you get a sense of where people kind of sit without really poking any bears or, you know, scaring anybody. So it's definitely going to be, I think it's a lot calmer for me right now that I have pulled back and not been so fixated on what everybody else is saying. Okay. It's more about what I have learned and come to know when I sit quietly and think about it, you know, and certainly when we talk, you know, you're kind of you're my second family in that regard, right? You're the family, the place I can go and we hash things over, and that's enough for me. I actually, at this point, for balance, I can be very social and I have to with my job and certain times, but I actually now relish time by myself. I don't really need to be around anybody else, right? Like, and oftentimes more in a quiet place. I don't need to have anything going on. Certainly I don't turn on TVs unless I'm playing some instrumental music or something on it. But in a nutshell, that's, you know what I mean? It's just, I still have to juggle quite a few things. I won't say I've lost some friends, but I definitely have noticed a lot of friends I used to do things with, you know, it just doesn't resonate anymore. And it's not like we don't like each other, that we just have moved on. And, you know, people will, if you think about it, your friendships change quite drastically over time. Especially if you've raised a family, you know what I mean? Your world is around all that. And then when they're grown up, then you find other things. So in a nutshell, that's what it is. I'm sure that as you guys all say your piece, I'll remember, oh yeah, that too. But yeah, I'm still kind of in, you know, 1 foot in the 3D, 1 foot kind of in the ascension process. And then just kind of, you know, if I find I'm overwhelmed, I just lay back and kind of just chill out, and it helps a lot. And do some fun things like we've talked about, the crafts or the inner child or the music. Those are big for me. So they help me to decompress.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the real challenge is that having 1 foot here in the 3D and 1 foot in the 5D.
Yeah.
Essentially, you know, that's what I've found the most challenging. And you know, you have two worlds that you really sort of, you know, existing between. And I just can't wait till that all just comes together. You know, we can just finally be, you know, without all the discernment and all the jargon we're sort of having to go through, and especially with our family and friends. Like I said, you know, I mean, our vibrations are raising, so that's you're going to get those shifts, and you're going to get those differences in opinions, but it's about recognizing that's actually happening. And it took me a while to realize that, because I was forever sort of trying to push my beliefs and thoughts onto people, and you know, because you're like, why can't you see it? Why can't you see what's going on? Or you know, it was a real sort of tough pill to swallow when people couldn't see it. But eventually you realize that they're not going to see it. They're just not at that stage of development in their ascension. And when I think that gave me a lot of peace, because I just stopped communicating that. I just sort of, I just took in what my own truth and took in my own research. And then it was a great way of sort of balancing out that, essentially, for me personally.
It was an aha moment, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. So no, that's a good point there for sure. But what about you, Steph? Anything?
Well,
call people out. And
I used to have a couple like little odd jobs, but in the past couple years, they've all kind of like ended. So I have a little more time to myself, and which is fun. And of course, I always have to do my artsy, craftsy stuff. That helps me find balance as well, because if I've had like regular jobs where I've, you know, done office work and things like that, and I totally get freaked out because it just is not the way my mind works. So I always have to come back and do something creative. And I do have a husband, and I take too good a care of him.
Well, that's nice.
He's a little spoiled, you know. So I try and be there for him when he's home, and but you know, I still have to make room for myself and time for myself. And that's the thing, you know, I've learned over the years, because I can't just live my life for other people. It's like I have to live my life for myself. and it's not always easy for me. So it's been a struggle for me to take the time that I want to take and do the fun things without without him, so that I can keep myself going and keep myself happy. And it does help. And, we give each other enough space too, that it's not a big deal. And I do like time to myself quite a lot. I don't have to have a lot of other people around to be happy, which is, I never would have thought that, like, years and years and years ago. But as I've moved around from place to place, and I had friends in my hometown and where I grew up, but then as I moved and moved and moved and moved, the circle of friends kind of like decreased, which made me kind of forced me to go within more and to be comfortable being by myself. So um that's been kind of building up over the years. Not that I don't like other people. Of course, I love everybody here. And being in the spotlight has been very challenging for me. Being, I'm a little shy. I don't like to put myself out there. So this has been a real challenge for me, but it's been also very good for me to do that. And people always told me, you have a voice, you need to use it. So um that's part of my balancing out as well. And of course, I also have to exercise. I have to, well, it's mostly swim, because that does like dual purpose for me. I swim for enjoyment. I swim for exercise. I feel like I do like energy work when I swim. So it's multifaceted. And yeah, I also, in between the 3D and the the future, and I find it's harder and harder to be in the 3D, but yet we still have so much going on in the 3D. That's been the biggest struggle for me, because I don't think in that way anymore. I
Yeah.
just don't think that way. So yeah, I just enjoy being in my space.
I mean, I resonate with the whole being alone thing too. Like, I was a pretty very social animal growing up, and and I'm sure everyone else was as well. When you really, before all this sort of was thrust upon us, essentially. But I love my own, being on my own. I love that time alone, and you can't get enough of it sometimes. I mean, it's like, I think it's important to have that, again, the balance in between the time alone and time with friends and family and so forth. It's important that we stay social, but it's amazing that time alone, how much you can just be within yourself and just really sort of focus on you and your needs specifically. And I think a lot of people get hung up in the word being selfish, and it's like, I think whether that's been something that we've been told not to be, and it becomes this, we get triggered for guilt, or we get triggered for shame for being selfish. But I think it's important that we are to agree to be selfish and not be ashamed of it, because we do need to take care of ourselves, mentally, physically. And that requires, only you can do that. No one else is going to do that for you. So it's important that you allow that time and dedicate that time to your selfishness, I think. And that's one thing I've learned as well. And, it's again, not trying to be too selfish. You've got to have a balance there, but, you don't want to be completely giving your time and energy to everyone else, not, and forgetting what you know about yourself. That's a very important thing to sort of, I think, take away from it. And that's something I've really sort of managed to do the last couple of years, and I think when the whole awakening process happened for me, I became a very sort of orientated person. It was all about, what's going on, what's happening, and everything almost sort of went away. It was like I couldn't concentrate on anything else, and that was a good and a bad thing. But you just felt like you were just on your own, and it's a great growth. It's a really good growth to sort of move from that sort of, state of just feeling alone to being comfortable with being on your own, being alone. I think.
Many of us were kind of forced into that just because we think so differently too.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you start thinking so differently from the general population, it's hard to be around them when it's so different.
No, for sure. Definitely. No, it's a great point. I think, it's important to have that space, but it's also important to still stay social, and still have that interaction with people. And that's what's so great about finding your tribe and having a group of people you can confide in and grow with. And I felt like I was alone for 6-7 years until we found each other. Essentially, it's been fantastic, and lots of social media is great for that. Getting onto chats and channels. There's so many channels out there you can be a part of. So many communities now that have been built. It's amazing, and people holding meetings and in these communities. It's a fantastic way to connect, and still ground yourself within that sort of that world, but also you can then disconnect and go back into your 3D as you need to. So it's been a fun, enjoyable ride, but also has its challenges, that's for sure. But what about you, Tracy? What have you got you can sort of share on your balancing?
Well, I'm sort of in a similar position with Steph right now, right? Where I quit my job last year, but I will say that my life, I mean, I always say I'm a work in progress, right? So my life was back around 2017 was completely out of balance. I was working 2.5 hours away from where I lived. We had this beautiful house out in the country. I mean, I could go on and on, but what I learned from that experience was that, you really got to go inside, right? And you really have to take time for yourself, because I was just always, and we talk about frequency, my frequency was completely jumbled, right? I mean, I was following the Ascension path, doing the meditations and everything, but here my life was all out of balance. So I think, that brings us to kind of last year, when I quit and I was able to take that time really to go inside, and do things that I really enjoy, right? I enjoy traveling and I enjoy getting out on the land, doing grid work, connecting with people, but connecting with like-minded people like this group, and in other groups too, right? That we're all, working with. And that's what you mean, you kind of meet your tribe. And that's where I feel too, where we amplify each other's frequency, right? When we all meet together, like, we had that experience with, Rex, where we all, and the other group I met in Georgia. And it's just, that's kind of what I feel like is, for me, is balance, in working on the things that bring you joy, where you can. But it is harder, I will say, when you're still out there working the 3D job. It is hard to balance it because everybody is pulling at your frequency, right? And you're trying to be stable, right?
Oh yeah.
So even if you can just take 5 minutes for yourself, I think that helps, right? Even if you have a chaotic life and you can just take 5 minutes, whether it's just stepping outside or whether it's just going into a room and just being quiet for 5 minutes, even if you don't meditate, or just going out in nature.
Breathing. Just focusing on your breathing.
Breathing. Yeah, the breath work. And I've had those similar times too, where I've tried to, in the past, all that stuff with the rabbit holes, where you're red pilling all of these people. And, you just find at the end of the day that everybody's on their own journey. What I do right now is I say, okay, just plant a seed. Okay, here's maybe the QFS, and just leave them be.
Exactly right. Yeah.
So that creates a better balance, right?
Yeah.
Rather than trying to, what I've learned is that then they run the other way. What I learned through.
We had to shut up, basically. Just
Shut up,
like you
right?
said, plant a little seed and then just let it grow. Just walk away. That's one thing I've learned too. It's just
Yeah, every once in a while, planting that seed, all of a sudden they'll go, yeah, right, and then you're going to go, oh, you never know.
It'll pop up.
And it's kind of like like you were saying, when you were out of balance, and all of us, have been in a busy world before we came into our awakening somehow. So we're wrestling with the alligator, if you will, right? Yeah. So one thing too, to have time to yourself, like you were saying, I think that mindlessly, many of us Americans, particularly, the TV's on, or you just pop it on because you're going to listen to the news, and then whatever show's on afterwards, you get hooked on or whatever, and you're not even really watching, you know what I'm saying? And that is stimulation and frequency that just really, it's toxic to you. You know what I mean? So when
your fears.
Yes. And as you start to let that go, then you start to awaken a bit more. So that's been a big help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, the TV frequencies are a big one. You know, that was a big wake
Yeah.
up for me too. And
Yeah.
you know, it's not just what you're watching; it's the frequency itself. You know, that's actually having an impact on you. Yeah,
Yeah.
they get you
Yeah.
every which
I
way.
always had that thing on in the past, you know, and it's like,
Yep.
shut it off.
Is that
Yeah.
anything else, Tracy, you want to bring up, or you?
I think that's the big thing. I mean, I think just taking time for yourself. I mean, you know, like I said, even if it's just a few minutes and just doing things that, you know, bring you that little bit of joy, even if you do have a chaotic life, you know, just taking that time. Even when I was working the craziness of Northern Virginia, I would just take the time, you know, even if I was in a meeting, sometimes I just walk outside, just go outside for, you know, and okay, I got to go back into this other meeting, just to keep the balance. So that's kind of what I would say, you know, and I just say you just do you, right?
Yeah. I mean, the energy in my house can get so crazy. I mean, I've got 5 kids, but you know, and it's 3 are special needs under 8, and my 2 elder daughters, they're pretty much okay. But you know, just taking a grounded walk to the bin is fantastic. I'll get it. You know, it's like a 2-minute walk to go out and put the rubbish, and I make the most of that 2 minutes just to get out of the space. You know, I've got my feet in the dirt, and I'm just walking to the bin. It's like I just, you know, I look at the sky and embrace it. I use all that to sort of, you know, reground a bit, and then I come back in the house, and it's amazing just, you know, what 2 minutes of that can do, you know, for your mindset, you know. And that's just a little thing. That's one, you know, grounding is a massive one. And you know, I'm sure you get that too, Steph, when you're swimming. It's a great form of grounding as well. And I do a lot of, I have a morning exercise routine too. You know, I'm outdoor trainer, and for that reason, you know, I love to get outdoors, and it's a grounding as much as anything, you know, the exercise. And it's amazing for my mental health. And it's really, really helped me. This whole ascension process is getting back into nature, exercising, and getting in touch with it. And you know, that was, I mean, I've been doing that training for over 15 years, and you know, and I never really noticed or understood the importance of it until the last few, to be honest. You know, I just had my head in the sand, you know, it was just exercise. But you know, having learned what I've learned,
it's not just exercise.
No, it's not, you know. And it's amazing. It just makes me more enjoy it even more, and appreciate it even more, the time and just the simplicity of it, you know, which is great. You don't have to, doesn't have to be complicated. It's all just, you know, it's getting out there and keeping busy, keeping exercise, keeping, you know, doing something you really enjoy doing. Mainly, as long as you have a passion for it and you enjoy doing it, you're gonna
The movement.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah, like what Steph mentioned.
Yeah,
for too.
100%. But yeah, no, it's grounding is a great way of finding balance, you know, in your life and your energy. And you know, that's, again, we've been so disconnected from that, you know, and it can really, I found that's really really recenter me very quickly, you know, if I'm getting a bit out of whack. So you just find the opportunities where you find them and make do. So no, it's great. How about you, Dana? What have you got anything there you want to share as far as your balancing acts go?
I think I'm the last person of the group to talk anything about balance.
Okay.
The thing is, just, you know, sometimes you get so caught up, and especially with everything that is going on and the connections I've been, I'd like to say privileged, and not in a snotty way, but as a natural progression. Just let alone yesterday, I was up for 32 hours in a row fighting the good fight. And things can and will get imbalanced, but you know, this situation doesn't last forever either. So that basically is sometimes the kind of like a thread that, you know, keeps me hanging on to sanity, basically. Or that is what I'm choosing to say to myself. But much like with the rest of the posse, I find like I'm the second I finish the Zoom, I'm going to go and take a beeline to the beach, and I'm going to go and swim. I mean, that's my place to be in. And I like to be there very early because I've already noticed, much like Scott said, that the older you get, the more you appreciate your solitude. And I appreciate the fact that possibly no one else is swimming on the beach because it's a public beach. Like, but I'm blessed enough to live in a country where mentality is that we politely say good morning to people, and then we swim as far from each other as physically possible. There are people literally in the middle of a lake just to avoid humanity. I appreciate that. And so I like that, but the families with small children start to congregate after the breakfast, so I need to hit that slot. And teenagers come in the afternoon, so I need to maneuver with that. But then, then there's the whole other arena of paperwork and housework and cooking. I like to cook all of our food. I don't buy anything readily from the shops. I like to cook everything, and all that takes time. But lately we've resorted, like, just a practical measure how I keep some level of balance in the household is we have a list with the boy for every day. What do we do? Because I make him contribute. That's not even a multiple choice question. He gets to contribute because he gets to live here. And also when he does move, on his own, I want him to be able to do these things for himself.
Mhm.
Like for, for every day there is a theme what we do. Like every other day we take parts in who is sweeping the kitchen floor, minding the cat litter and taking out the bin, etc. I like to cook, so I cook every day, but then I teach him how to cook and make certain dishes, and he has a day when he cooks as well, etc., etc. So we take parts in doing things, but much of the taking parts is teaching him how to do them, so he knows then what to do when he will be by himself. So that's not, the thing is, we have this family here, but we have our physical family. So we need to find a healthy balance there. And I will never sacrifice from my physical family here. And I know the others feel the same. And we need to remain respectful of that. But I'd say, to me, like, even when I think about, I started to think back when you said, Scott, about the small children.
Mhm.
And I remember when the fruit of my loins was very small, and I basically needed to be there as a single parent 24/7. I would put him to bed. I remember the 7:30 was a holy time for me, because that's the moment I would put him to bed. Unless the house is on fire, he will stay in that bed. And
100%.
even then, I'd probably carry the bed outside just not to wake him up. But I would make it my business to go to bed very early, even if it's just to write and read, because that's my natural way of existence. If I got to choose, I'd live in a world with books, note papers, and pens, and woods and lakes, and probably nobody else, just quietness. And
Nice common
but
theme.
that's not the world. That's not it. We're not there yet.
Yeah.
One day. But
Getting there.
I'd go to bed very early, and I try my best to fall asleep as early as possible, because I'd have my alarm, because he would be up at 4:30 regardless of any time I put him to bed. That was like his inner clock, even before he was born. He started the whole rock and roll on my belly every single morning, 4:30. It was like clockwork. So I knew that's the time he will wake up regardless. So I knew I needed to be up by 3:30 just to get that 1 hour of alone time, during which I would usually just write. But you have to adjust according to your life situation. You have to adjust. To me, it's vital that there is this alone time, this quiet time, and the time that you kind of go within with your, basically with your inner voice.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of return back to yourself. But also there is a balance. Sometimes you have to reach out to your friends. Even, you know, some days the energy is so strange that you have to find out how you feel. And sometimes you need the outside perspective, but always the truth you find within yourself as well.
Very true.
Yeah.
Good point.
I think that was that for me.
That's great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great
Amy.
advice. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, well, oh, my pleasure.
What about you, big guy? I'm sure you've got some interesting balancing acts
Yeah.
you're performing.
Can you hear me okay? Because I chimed in. I didn't know if my mic is working. Is it?
Yeah, all good.
It was working well.
Yeah.
Well, I never found balance. Okay. So I don't know how to find it. So I'm the patient here in this process, because if you go into the, I spent years teaching. And if you really do that job correctly, then that crap's 24/7, because you bring it home. And it's anywhere you have a spare minute, you've got, and this was English. Okay. So it's not like a multiple choice for the most part. I've got to read what you wrote. God help me, because, people write like they speak and all this other stuff. So, that's painstaking. So I've got to pay attention when I'm doing that. And so that means you're not paying attention to who's around you. So, and you don't really make a lot of money in doing that. You got to love to do that. And that was okay. Because I think part of the balance is that you have to like what you do. You have to like that work part of you. You have to like that. If you don't, that makes for a really long day. And I don't know if you ever get balanced with something because sometimes you get forced into a job that maybe you took in the means that the money kind of created the lifestyle for you. And now it turned into something you really don't like, but you're stuck because you got these bills that you have to meet. These, the next job has to meet these needs, and the one you want to do is a boating instructor or something that makes nothing, but yet so you never get to do that. And I think that's what's disappointing to a lot of people. I'm not necessarily in that boat, but I've seen that happen. But back to the point of that is that you didn't make a lot of money really in it. That there's things I wanted, and I wanted the kid to have too, and this and that. So I had to take 2 jobs. Well, I have an advanced degree, so we'll teach college and work at the college at night and teach 2 classes. Well, guess what? That's about 50 people a class. That's about 100 more papers that you're going to have every time that you put an assignment out. Not to mention that you've got 6 classes of 25 a piece, at least, or 30 maybe going through your day that have paperwork. Can you see where I'm going? So balance that. Well, there's a lot of teachers out there that have their ways of doing that. And they say, okay, you need to minimize this and this. But those worksheet teachers aren't effective. And that's what I call the ones that just basically give you a worksheet and you do it in the classroom and that's it. Or whatever. That you've got to teach with visuals and hearing and hands-on. All 3 have to be in that combination if you really want to get to the students in some way. Okay. Because we all learn in those 3 ways. So, well, that means a lot of work for me because I got to read that stuff. Anyway, point is that I was having a lot of that, and I would work from 7 a.m. and then go to those. I wouldn't see Sharon at night till maybe 10:30 when I get home. Okay, there was times in the winter where I didn't even see the yard in daylight till Saturday, and I like to work, and I have a work ethic that has to be like what comes from me has to have a certain accomplishment to it. I mean, I'm not just to turn in junk. So, that's the same way I would give the students the same, writing notes to them about something that was not, here, pay attention here. This is, mistakes and, all that. But there's a lot of work. And I didn't get to do, I liked what I did. Someone asked me once, what was that? And I said, well, it's kind of like a hobby. Teaching was like a hobby. I looked at it like that. So I could get to where it wasn't painstaking, because sometimes it was. The other teachers were painstaking. That was the part that the kids I loved. The teacher mentality, I necessarily don't. Okay, that's a lot of times it's a Karen and they're all out about trying to be the first person to expose them. They're worried about all that. And I never had discipline problems in my classroom. Okay, so never, because I have techniques for that. But I was different with the way I handled them, and so and it worked. So it made that part of the day okay. But it's good to be a father too. You get home and then it's dark and he's already gone to bed. So I would be sad about all that sometimes because I'm there for everybody else's kid and not my own.
Yeah.
That's as I said, I never found balance really, because I don't do that now. COVID took that out because I got to the point where someone that's here said there was the aha moment that you got when you saw their faces, or whomever, one of y'all said that. And that's what I would get out of teaching. Okay, well, did I say something we weren't supposed to say? Did I say that C word for that?
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Oh, is that guy going to
Sorry.
rumble
It'll
now?
probably be all right.
Can we
No.
bleep it out?
I didn't hear
Okay.
it.
It'll be-
We'll be
Anyway,
fine.
okay. Can I just I just had a
Just don't
flashback.
say it again. Just don't say it
Okay,
again.
It won't. And but anyway, that caused me to not enjoy it at all. Now I don't like it because I can't connect with the students at all. This was a college now, and students. Well, I had them both at the time. Okay, well, anyway, so that was enough of that. Okay, you can't connect with them, so I got out of that. And there comes the sovereignty part of my story, where that goes, and that's not for this video, but that's where now I'm going to do something else, and I don't know what, but trying to find a balance. Now I have no students. No, I have no. Now it's the other way around. Now I'm like Steph, and I'm by myself, or we're in alone with all this time. Now what? And she works at going into town all the time for work. So, and I'm by myself doing house projects that I have neglected for all this time. So I'm painting, and then there's where you have your discoveries of your childhood come up. And you get real mad in the middle of the day, and you kind of working through these things. And so that's the time that was spent there. So really, to the answer to the question, I didn't really have balance when I had, because it was almost like a workaholic. But I mean, I would have liked to have balance, but I like to work out, and I did all that stuff too. And I found ways to get in there, but I really didn't. When my time with Sharon and whatever, would be able to lap the papers. I really did. We'd go to restaurants sometimes. I think, is there going to be a wait? I'm going to grab these papers. She'd go, honestly, really? But you got to keep up, because if you don't, then you've got students wanting grades. You got deadlines for reports and things. It's just nuts. It really is. It's a lot. And if you do it right, you have a lot. So, I'm just thinking back on that. I haven't in a while, but that was really, I was happy, but I was sad about it. I never had a balance for that. I never could find it. I don't know where you find it in that, because that school stuff, you 24/7. What do you make per hour? Well, let's figure out how much I work at home. $2.50, because it's because it does. You have to love it. It's a thankless job. The students come back to you years later, but not all of them, but during the process, they don't thank you for that B I got, they don't, and parents, some of them will come forward with thanks, but you just got to go on it. It's kind of like this job, or what we do here, where we give of ourselves. You don't really know if you make a difference or you don't. You hope that you do, and you just got to go on that, because you can't see the faces. So, but I like what I do. I like sharing that stuff, what you get. Like in this, for instance, Rex didn't balance. I did not balance. So now I'm still not quite balanced. I'm trying to balance my sleep schedule, because it's stupid. So it's an ongoing, it's work in progress, really, for me. And I just know that you can't let work take over who you are, and make you change your personality of who you are to get involved, to get like that. And I didn't let that happen. I was always jovial and could put on that for whatever I needed to get through that part, but I'm really exhausted, and my time alone was time asleep. So that really didn't count, because then I just wake up and it was back to it again, and it was where was me? I didn't have it. I ran on fumes when it comes to that. But like I said, there was a satisfaction in the job, I guess, that you have to like what you do. I couldn't have done that if it would have been something like a factory worker. And hats off to those guys that have this a routine thing that they just do, because my mind is much busier than that. I have to occupy all that, or I'm gonna get into trouble. If I have too much idle time,
Oh, Greg, I'm
we'll find time to make time. So I would, and someone like Scott living and everything, God, he's the reason why he's where he is. Because if I had idle time and he had idle time, okay, there's nothing good gonna come out of that. So you need to keep us busy with whatever that sort of thing. So that was me in school too. It's like, I'd finish early with something. I'm like, well, I got to entertain myself, so I'm going to talk to her or whatever it is, start that stuff. And it's like, so yeah, there's always been a high energy there that needed to be calmed down. But
it is funny,
anyway,
isn't it, when you're so busy all the time, and when you do get that time, like I find that sometimes I really beg for just a couple of hours, or whatever. And when everything's gone away, it's you sometimes struggle to. It's like now what do I do? And that's when your whole thought process kicks in. Yeah.
Oh my
That's
God,
funny.
I'm by myself. And I'm not
Well,
in the
that's-
bathroom. I'm by
that's
myself and I'm
because-
not in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We're so used to being overstimulated. And the more we allow that to control our lives rather than taking our own control, you know what I mean? And so some of that's a maturity thing too, for anybody who's, as you're growing up in your adulthood, whether you're raising a family or not, your friends, what you do, it all does ebb and flow and change. And we're certainly in a big change right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so we all have some, very similar outlooks on stuff, and we have things we're juggling. Now, I'm going to throw this out just because I know there's a lot of people out there from the different groups we've done and questions and stuff. What do you say to the people who that's all they know is being alone? They feel really alone, and they don't really feel like they have anybody to talk to, and whatnot. And hence, that's where they enjoy, some of this social media stuff, connecting with friends. So there's the complete opposite of that too, right? And that's an imbalance as well for them, because the physical touch, of a friend or a hug, or the knowing that you have a soft place to land somewhere is important. You know what I mean? So, looking from that perspective, that's an imbalance, and how do we help them too? You know what I mean? Or what can they do to try to find balance?
I don't have any friends. I mean, physical friends here. I don't remember. I've changed countries and cities so many times that those people that I used to know for decades, it's almost like they belong in a different era, different everything. But then I've never felt that I may not be the right person to talk about this, because
well, what I see about it is you're happy that, I mean, like, or you are very
that's what I mean. Like, I don't have
content.
that need. I have the need to kind of withdraw myself. That's why I have my alarm clock going on every morning at 6, but usually I'm up already before that. I mean, I woke up after 3 this morning, just because I want to go to the lake before everyone else does. So to me, I'm quite happy with my circle being being online.
Some people can't, and some people can't help it because they live in a place where there's not a lot of people around or whatnot.
Well, that's too. I mean, it's a hectare. Would you want to mingle with?
So my hats are off.
It has to be kind of like when you have that physical need to be with people, and there's also, I think there's a biological, situation as well. I mean, think about it. If you're a young person, and you'd like to meet other people and be social and find a partner, but if you live somewhere and find it hard to connect with other people, I guess you have to kind of put it out there in the universe and have faith that, when the time is right. I mean, we've seen, people who are very in advanced age. Just, last time I went for a swim, there was this couple, and they must have been in their early 70s, and they were basically they were cooing with each other like they were. You just know when you see a newly kind of a very fresh couple who don't hate each other already, because there was this giggling and hand holding, and they even swam together. Like, how do you even move your arms? I just saw their heads almost together in the middle of a lake. How do you do that physically? I mean, really, I was intrigued. but I think you find the people you are meant to find, and also it's a question of frequency. When you are ready and when the other people are ready? Would you rather have kind of a subpar or dishonest connections to others when
Right.
when you don't meet at the same level? Because those friendships, those relationships, they won't carry you.
Right.
They won't last. It's just we
Yeah.
have to have the trust that everything in the end will go exactly as it's supposed to be, and to remember the only job for the future is to change. The only people we can change it for us is ourselves.
Yes.
How
Yeah.
do we think about things? How do we resonate? Where is the frequency?
Mm.
Who do you connect with? And also the thing is about these physical connections, we have also non-physical connections that can be extremely intensive. We have a whole, think about it, soul families. We have our connections to the sky friends. And well, when I was living in Greece, I had my water friends there as well. So there's so much in the world that you can see if you tune into the frequency, but you don't see necessarily from purely 3D eyes as well. So it depends. Everything is so much to do with how you look at things.
Well, like I said, that's perfect. I agree with you, Dana.
I also
just-
think
Go ahead.
I also think that if you do feel the need to meet people, first, yes, put the intention out there, but do things out in the public that you're very interested in, things that totally resonate with you, because that's where you're going to meet the kind of people that also resonate with that, and you'll have something in common with.
Yep.
You know, if you like line dancing, go, you know, just go and observe. If nothing else, you don't have to be involved, and see what happens. Or if you like libraries, go to the library and just hang out there for a little while, and or go to the beach. And you know, be cautious, because you have to use your discernment with people, but by doing the things that you love and having intention out there, to that someday you're going to meet some people that are, you know, like-minded, that's to me the best way to do it, if you need that kind of balance.
Love that.
That's a great
All about
suggestion.
all about frequency, right?
Yeah, exactly. You have to find the match.
Yep.
And my point was with that was knowing that there's a lot of people that have come forth and lamenting their situation because they weren't happy because of that. And so that's exactly right. It's like inner work, and kind of realize that you're worthy of it, and don't dwell on the things you don't want.
Yeah.
Be thinking about the things you do want. And
Exactly.
I like that. And I just
And
was
I
giving
think the whole subject matter of happiness is you can't find happiness in other people. You can't build your home in other people, because when they leave your life, are you going to allow them to take away your home? You have to find your home and your happiness within yourself. And only then can you be happy with other people. I'd hate to even think about a prospect that I have to be another person's happiness.
Yeah.
And
a lot of pressure.
yeah, that's not
right?
healthy. That's
Oh, yeah.
codependency.
You shouldn't have
Yes.
to work that hard at it.
Right.
The relationships, whether you're friends or whatever, you shouldn't have to work at being. There's something telling there. If you've got to work hard at that friend, like, there's family that you've got, the biologicals, and I always say, who needs enemies when you've got family? But it's because they can breed right into that in there. And so with that, it's like you just, because it all comes down to, there's the spoils of the trust thing. Okay, so people don't want to open up and don't want to be certain, and that's on an individual basis, and that goes into sovereignty and another whole topic again. Once again, it comes into that, knowing who you are and what you'll put up with. And that came to me when I was by myself. So that time alone was where I had nothing but me, and I had to really learn to and love me, and that's where that all comes from. And I had that time, and before that, I didn't have time for my waking hours were the job, and then it was sleep time. There was no alone time. And so that was important that you would have that, and it would come in my life later at the end. Otherwise, I get it. People say, how do you love yourself? How do you really get to that? Well, you got to make time for that. And I don't know how that's, for individuals, it could be different. But for me, there was no time. Okay. So it happened at the end where I had all this time. So there's always been feast or famine with me. All this or none. Same with the weather here. All rain or no rain. It's never just a balance. And everything's out of balance. Okay. So I think what we turn into is the balancing act. But because we have to flip on both sides of that stuff. But anyway, those are what I want to say. What Dana was saying, but there's a reason why you're not. I always think this way. There's a reason why you didn't make it to this point in my life. Okay, so few friends, but good ones. But the ones that didn't make it, there's reasons why they didn't make it. Because I expect what I give out, which is the loyalty and the confidence and the trust and this and the other. And when you screw it over, I'm not going to work. You should have to work that. So therefore, you can be gun shy about lonely people. May be gun shy about having, well, I've had all this hard. I don't want to put myself out there, and that's just another whole thing too. And I feel bad for that because, they're good people that are home by themselves, and they always wanted a good friend too, because you thought you had them, but where are they right now? That you don't have them. Because they're here, right here on this monitor. I'm talking about right in this room, or around, she's in the other room, but you know what I mean. Friends that are not. They're just someone that they're hard to find, and when you find one, you know who it is. You think, or you hope. There's always that room for surprise, and so.
Well,
Anyway.
once you get to, like you say, love yourself and get into your sovereignty, and basically quiet things down enough that you put yourself first, and you get to know yourself again. You get reacquainted with yourself. Then, whether you realize it or not, you are making a choice of the people who enter and stay in your life, and you don't have time for silly. You don't have time for chasing anybody down. They're either in with you 100% or they're not, and that's okay. And you just kind of move along in that regard. So it does evolve, and you stand up for what you need. And that's in general, no matter what, if you're looking for more relationships, or if you're looking for more of a peaceful, calm, inner space time, be able to quiet yourself, kind of sit there and think of what you really might want or need if you feel like you just don't have control over your life.
Yeah. And people put a lot of pressure on themselves too to fit into certain things. And I always have friends I had that weren't married at the time. He would talk to me or something and say, I'm struggling. We're going to go to therapy or whatever. I said, wait a minute, stop. Therapy? You're dating? That's what dating is. Therapy, all the way to freaking through the thing. It's therapy. You're waiting for that screaming girl to come out that you didn't know was in there at the 8-month mark, and you go, oh, there it is. I'm out. Okay. So, you gotta, that's what that is. All that's therapy. You don't go pay for therapy in a dating situation. It's time to say bye-bye. It shouldn't be something that you shouldn't have to work that hard for it. It should just be, it should just be. And that you got to work at it. I know, but not like that. It's not a laborious thing where you've got to do this over and over and over and over every day. Then there's something wrong. Yeah. And he particularly liked blondes, for instance, and it was like he was going to bound determined to marry one. And I'm like, but this not working, and you're going to therapy, so stop putting your shit on that and just let it be whoever it is. It's not going to be what you necessarily think, and that's that kind of stuff. Why are you therapying over dates? That's just ridiculous to me. Okay,
you don't want to be a pretender and around a pretender. So basically, again, one of my favorite sayings, I think I've said it before, is be who you are and say what you feel, because the people who matter don't mind, and the people who mind don't matter.
Exactly. Love it.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a perfect way. Yeah. Perfect.
I hope that there's a few pearls that you guys have gotten from this, and I'm sure if you have any other questions or comments that we completely didn't really touch on, you can let us know.
Yep. No, I think it's been a great video.
Beautiful. Thank you, everyone.
Everyone's got their piece. Yeah.
Great chat. Thank you, everybody.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.